Viewers, the film Kashmir Files has dug out the truth. It has in fact confronted us with the plainly visible truth. It was always there. But through deceit, a number of vested interests had managed to cover it. The filmmakers have in a sense done their job. Now it devolves upon us, the media, and you, the viewers, to do something to bring to book the perpetrators, abettors, and the apologists of Islamist terror that allowed for this genocide to happen. For more than 30 years, not one person has ever been punished for the genocide. This is a shocking fact. It is an uncontestable fact. Cases have been filed, but no charge sheet. Not one. If you ask those who ruled Kashmir why this is the case, then Kashmir's entitled ruling elites, like the Abdullah family, immediately put their hands up. They said, don't ask us. We weren't even in power when the Kashmiri Hindus were butchered, were killed. They say you must ask the BJP and its agent Jagmohan, who was the then governor of the state. They keep saying this, on and on and on. Listen to the Abdullah father and son duo. A wee bit, viewers. They've been holding press conferences, very neatly distancing themselves from this genocide. Listen first.
जनाब वो गवर्नर थे उस वक्त अब वो जिंदा नहीं रहे नहीं तो वो बता देते इसे मैं चाहता हूँ कि इसकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन करनी चाहिए और इन्वेस्टिगेशन में फिल्म से दिखती है हर फिल्म अपनी अपनी बयान करते हैं ये नहीं ज़रूरी है कि हर फिल्म सच्ची है इसको अगर देखना है तो इसकी जांच करिए ईमानदारी से इसको जांच करिए देखिए कौन इसमें जिम्मेदार है कैसे हुआ क्यों हुआ
उसमें तरह तरह के झूठ दिखाए गए हैं बिलखसूस उस वक्त की हुकूमत के बारे में हकीकत ये है कि जब ये वाक़ये हुए जब कश्मीरी पंडित यहाँ से निकल गए उस वक्त फारूक अब्दुल्ला वज़ीर आला नहीं था उस वक्त गवर्नर राज था जगमोहन साहब गवर्नर थे वीपी सिंह साहब की हुकूमत थी और वीपी सिंह की हुकूमत के पीछे कौन खड़ा था बीजेपी
Jagmohan, VP Singh, everyone but us is to blame, said Abdullah Jr. They say, viewers, when you repeat something, even a lie, time after time, it eventually becomes something approximate to the truth. While this can often happen, the truth, if pursued relentlessly, stands up and speaks for itself, viewers. That's what is going to happen tonight. Not willing to take the Abdullahs at face value, we decided to do some digging. And we spoke to some of those who are in the know. And our search has yielded an unexpected and undeniable fact that lays the blame of the genocide back squarely at the Abdullah door. This document proves that the Abdullahs could have saved Hindus as they were very much in power when the genocide had begun. The document in my hand, viewers, is a copy of an act. It's a law. This law is called the Jammu and Kashmir Government's Migrant Immovable Property Act of 1997. Farooq Abdullah was the Chief Minister when this act was passed in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. In one of the clauses of the act, to be specific, Clause E, the J&K government acknowledged that exodus began under Farooq Abdullah as Chief Minister. The act referring to the Kashmiri Hindu community specifies that a migrant means a person who migrated after 1st November 1989. Chronology is important here, viewers. Now remember that the Abdullahs exited office only on 18th January 1990. That is a full 10 plus weeks after they themselves say the genocide began. If this is the case, as it very evidently is, then how are they passing the buck today on to Jagmohan, on to VP Singh's Sarkar that was supported by the BJP? You see, viewers, right here at the bottom, migrant means any person who has migrated from Kashmir Valley or any other part of the state after 1st November 1989 and is registered as such with the Relief Commissioner. Viewers, they themselves have ascribed the date. They themselves have declared it. They themselves, in short, it became the law. And now when they are questioned, they say, oh, we weren't even there. We weren't even there. The disclosure could have devastating consequences for the Abdullahs. Now, viewers, you know that on India Upfront, I speak with the benefit of the hard fact. Right now, I'm clutching this hard fact, viewers. And why do I focus so much on the hard fact? Because, viewers, I want you to get closer to the truth. Too much is said to obfuscate, but the hard fact cuts fiction like a hot knife slices through butter. The disclosure could have devastating consequences for the Abdullahs. But of course, only if the Modi government uses the material revealed by Times Now to frame a case against Farooq Abdullah for misleading the nation, for doing nothing. For doing nothing when the genocide began. Now, what does this disclosure prove, viewers? I've broken it down for you. It proves that the Abdullahs admit that the pogrom began under their watch. It proves that the Abdullahs cannot pass the buck onto the center and onto Jagmohan. The Abdullahs could have taken measures, it proves, to stop the massacre because for 10 weeks they were in power. Now remember, viewers, Narendra Modi, for the Gujarat riots, is constantly targeted for doing nothing. For doing nothing over 2.5 days. Here, viewers, no one has asked a question of the Abdullahs, even though the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the brutal massacres were going on for 10 weeks. 10 weeks. 70 days. The Abdullahs also can't deny they freed 70 ISI-trained terrorists. It proves that the Abdullahs have misled the nation by trying to shift the onus. This disclosure proves the Abdullahs can be investigated for abdicating their duty. Who will do that? Of course, that's a question we'll come to later. Viewers, many people today are saying that the Abdullahs are genocide enablers. I'm not saying this. The BJP says it. Kashmiri Hindus who have suffered say it. Hundreds of activists say it. I'm going to now take you through a growing list of omissions. Remember what the NHRC said. In 2000-2001, the NHRC report said the National Conference's State Committee didn't function with regularity, didn't receive cooperation, didn't prioritize the problems of whom? of the Kashmiri Hindus. These committees were set up to investigate. Under the National Conference, they barely met, viewers. 2001, 2002, the NHRC report says NHRC was assured by whom? The Abdullah government, that problems facing pundits would be given priority. Regrettably, this has not been the case. J&K government to MHA on Omar Kaul's plea. Sarvanand Kaul murder. Government under Farooq junked the plea for a CBI probe. No purpose would be served by handing the case to CBI. There are a large number of these betrayals, viewers, these omissions, call them what you want to. Yet, the Abdullahs will pass the buck. Well, the Abdullahs seem to have incriminated themselves here, viewers, in a falsehood. They themselves admit it, that any person who has migrated from the 1st November 1989 qualifies as a migrant. Viewers, what do you say now? What do you say now? This is an undeniable hard fact. It was an act of law. The law, the copy is right here in my hands. You can even read the title. You can look it up. It'll be in the J&K Assembly list. Act number 16 of 1997. Please, viewers, I urge you tonight to join this show, which is a call to action. I want to open this up. Sushil Pandit joins the broadcast. Ishkaran Bhandari joins the broadcast. These two gentlemen I'm going to begin with. Sushil Pandit, you're an activist.
Yes.
You know about this. We had a good, long conversation. We were also bemused. And then we've come up with the goods.
Absolutely.
What does this tell you?
This very clearly says that they are not only complicit in it, they are hardly going to apologize for it or express regrets for it, but brazen it out through lies and through deceit. There is not an iota of regret, no loathing of this ghastly incident, when there is humongous evidence even before this. You know, he had his second term, which started in 96, post-96 assembly elections. And in his second term, we saw what we didn't witness in the first term, which is massive massacres, not individual targeted killing, which was the hallmark of his reign till 18th of January 1990. Vandhama massacre, Sangrampura massacre, Prankot massacre, massacres in Doda, massacres in Udhampur, which is across the Pir Panjal range, all happened under his watch. So it isn't as if that everything was fine before 18th of January. The first blast that took place in the valley, from where they say the militancy began, was in the intervening night of 31st July and 1st August. And the blast took place at Central Telegraph Office on Maulana Azad Road and Srinagar Club just outside Doordarshan, Srinagar. These two blasts happened both in the intervening night between 31st July and 1st of August, 1988. 1988. We had to flee Kashmir good 2 years later, 1.5 years later. The second incident that took place happened on 17th of September 1988, when DIG Ali Muhammad Watali's house was shot at by 5 gun-wielding militants. One of them died in return fire. Again, 1988, 17th of September. A night curfew was imposed in the heart of Srinagar town. I was there. I've navigated through that curfew. The first high-profile killing among Kashmiri Pandits happened on 13th of September 1989, when Pandit Tikalal Taplu was gunned down in broad daylight. He was the chief minister. The second high-profile killing among our community happened when retired High Court Judge Justice Neelkant Ganju was brutally gunned down at Hari Singh High Street on 4th of November, 1989. Abdullahs reigned till 1990 January. And can they absolve themselves of this? Premnath Bhatt, leading advocate of Anantnag, was similarly gunned down. Under his watch, Rubaiya Saeed was kidnapped, Mufti Muhammad Saeed's daughter. So this entire period, Rahul, and it shouldn't be surprising, when his government was toppled by engineering defections within his own party and his brother-in-law was made a chief minister, G.M. Shah, he started hobnobbing with the ultras. There is enough evidence of that. But Rajiv Gandhi committed the same mistake that Mrs. Gandhi had committed. Nehru had arrested Sheikh, Mrs. Gandhi restored him to chief ministership in 75. Here, Mrs. Gandhi had toppled Sheikh Abdullah knowing what he was up to, toppled Farooq Abdullah in 1984. Rajiv Gandhi reinstates him and gets him elected through rigged elections. But his connections with the ultras continued even after he came back to power. And there is a written report in India Today's March issue of 1990. I remember the author, Indrajit Bhadwar, who had traveled into Kashmir, and he reported more than 80 dreaded terrorists were released.
Yeah, I've worked with Indrajit
between
Bhadwar.
July and December 1989. And this is corroborated very recently on your channel by the former DGP, Shriman Vaidya. So, if you see all these issues, it's like a jigsaw puzzle falling in place.
It is.
He is complicit. Just as Milosevic was complicit. He may not have fired a single shot, but he presided over a system that engineered a program. Farooq Abdullah presided over a system that ensured our genocide. And he needs to be charged as such.
This is a very serious accusation that is being made by one of the victims of a depravity so extreme, viewers, so tragic, viewers, that it pains even today. I want to open this up. I want to bring in Ishkaran Bhandari. But first, viewers, listen once again to the father and son duo, the Abdullahs, who said, don't ask us any questions. Do not ask us any questions. We weren't even in power. Listen. Listen once again.
जनाब वो गवर्नर थे उस वक्त सर अब वो जिंदा नहीं रहे नहीं तो वो बता देते इसे मैं चाहता हूँ कि इसकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन करनी चाहिए और इन्वेस्टिगेशन में फिल्म से दिखती है हर फिल्म अपनी अपनी बयान करते हैं ये नहीं ज़रूरी है कि हर फिल्म सच्ची है इसको अगर देखना है तो इसकी जांच करिए ईमानदारी से इसको जांच करिए देखिए कौन इसमें जिम्मेदार है कैसे हुआ क्यों हुआ
उसमें तरह तरह के झूठ दिखाए गए हैं बिलखसूस उस वक्त की हुकूमत के बारे में हकीकत ये है कि जब ये वाक़ये हुए जब कश्मीरी पंडित यहाँ से निकल गए उस वक्त फारूक अब्दुल्ला वज़ीर आला नहीं था उस वक्त गवर्नर राज था जगमोहन साहब गवर्नर थे वीपी सिंह साहब की हुकूमत थी और वीपी सिंह की हुकूमत के पीछे कौन खड़ा था बीजेपी
वीपी सिंह की हुकूमत थी जगमोहन साहब थे योर ओन डॉक्यूमेंट मिस्टर अब्दुल्ला योर ओन डॉक्यूमेंट says you were very much there. Your own document describes a migrant, means any person who has migrated from Kashmir Valley or any other part of the state after 1st November 1989 and is registered as such with the Relief Commissioner. It's very important, Relief Commissioner. It's not just any old migrants. First of all, you couldn't even bring yourself to use the term refugee or victim or survivor, better still, of genocide. A migrant. Look at the way you were trying to paper over this crime. I want to bring in Ishkaran Bhandari. Ishkaran Bhandari, you see, we have a whole plethora of state institutions that have looked the other way. The Abdullahs are just the tip of the iceberg. Even the courts looked the other way recently. Now, on the basis of this material, and Mr. Abdullah Sr., at least he has the guts to call for an inquiry. The other one, of course, denies completely. Can we reopen these cases for an investigation at least? Can it be done?
Rahul, a man may lie, but documents do not lie. And this is a document passed by them
themselves as into a law, 1st November 1989. Moreover, you have Sushil ji here documenting targeted high-profile killings to en masse massacres which have been carried out. All of them cry out for justice. What happened in Supreme Court was extremely unfortunate. But I do believe, and in fact I wrote to the government 2 years ago, that you make denial of Kashmir genocide a punishable offense. We need to identify it as genocide. Because once we identify it as a genocide, and Indian government needs to identify genocide, then we can take legal steps, including setting up of judicial commissions for truth and reconciliation, judicial commissions to punish the people who have escaped punishment, no matter how high they be. And these are all people who are living people. So many testimonies have come out. These testimonies will have powerful impact. Sushil ji sitting here can bring so many more people who would be eyewitnesses, families of victims who have suffered. All eyewitness testimonies are still available if such a commission is in fact set up. And that is the crying need of justice, because people will brazen it out unless they are fixed and unless accountability is fixed, and victims cannot come back, the families what they have suffered cannot come back. But at least we can have justice. And Article 370 the government removed, and I complimented them, I compliment them now. But it is a time for a second step, and that second step is rehabilitation and punishment of all perpetrators. It's an onerous burden on this government. It was not done when they were in power, but I do believe they should discharge this burden, because that is the need of us, our civilization, as well as each individual victim's family.
Well, Javed Beg, General Secretary of the People Democratic Front, and Sajjad Tariq, leader of the Congress, I just want to say that I would call upon Junior Abdullah to hold a press conference tomorrow. Hold it at noon, hold it at 1, hold it at 11, hold it at 9, hold it at 8 in the morning. Doesn't matter. We'll be there to ask you some questions on the back of a document that you cannot distance yourself from, on the back of a hard fact that you cannot deny. And then tell us if you're ready to accept at least part of the onus for what happened. If you're really honest, if you really care about Kashmiriyat, you will present yourself at a press conference and you will take some questions. Do you have the moral conviction of taking these questions? Fundamental question tonight, viewers, to Abdullah Jr. At least your father has said that investigate. He's open to an investigation. That I'll ask the government as to why it's dragging its feet now. Times Now has been investigating this story. It's doing all the hard lifting for the government. Night after night, we're bringing out one facet buried, not just by apathy, but by a conspiracy, viewers. The government has a responsibility to pick this up, which we will ask. But I want to bring in, first, Javed Beg and Sajjad Tariq. Sajjad Tariq, can you, as leader of the Congress party that also has mocked this film, mocked the sentiments of Kashmiri Hindus by not giving them justice, will you today say that the Abdullahs have been caught out, spreading misinformation? Will you at least say that much? Will you at least admit on the back of what I have exposed? That's all I'm asking you. Nothing more.
Well, Rahul, I need 2-3 minutes, and hopefully I feel that all of you will listen to me patiently. No doubt about it, as Mr. Pandit said, that right from 88, the turmoil in the Kashmir started. Nobody is denying this fact. Even I don't deny, no other person who's putting up in Kashmir or outside Kashmir will deny this, that the problem started during 88 and 89. Regarding this document, this, like the written document, what you have in your hand, what I'll tell you, this document was documented not for a single community, but it was for all the migrants, those people who migrated from there. And this document was for rehabilitation camp, which was made there in Jammu, so that those people who shifted, like I'll tell you, my childhood friend, Ajay Kaul, he is a Kashmiri Pandit, and his family and our family, we shifted together because the condition of the valley was there, and we stayed there at the same place for approximately 2 years. Now I'll come to this point, what you are saying. If Abdullahs have a responsibility with this document, what you are saying, but we at the same time we cannot shed the responsibility of the governor also. And जैसे सुशील पंडित जी ने कहा और आप भी कह रहे हैं, if BJP was this much this aligned to give justice to the Kashmiri Pandits, Mr. Omar Abdullah was External Affairs Minister in their cabinet only. And he was External Affairs Minister in the BJP ruled government. Why they made him External Affairs Minister? Why there was not an inquiry at that particular time when BJP was having every power there? So, you see, I have nothing to do with national conference, but overall, what I am telling you, the scenario is the victims are Kashmiri Pandits also, Muslims also, Kashmiri Muslims also, other people who are putting up in Kashmir. But why, can I ask you that if this document we have got, write it after 25 years or 30 years, why in the previous government 10, 12 years back, 15 years back, when Omar Abdullah was External Affairs Minister, why he was External Affairs Minister there?
These are all legitimate questions.
No.
All legitimate questions. No one is denying these. You see, look, I am not being communal here. Many people have lost their lives in Kashmir. Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, many denominations. Everyone that dies at the end of a gun fired by an Islamist terrorist needs justice, has died a martyr. I believe this. I believe this. But I also believe that over the years, one community, which is the Hindu Kashmiri community, never got justice.
No denying the fact.
Now, 1 minute, sir. Sajjad Bhai, 1 second. Sajjad Bhai, 1 second, please. My question is, blame Jagmohan, blame NDA, blame this, blame VP, blame Gujral, blame Gowda, blame everybody. Don't care. 32 years have elapsed. There have been many governments at the center. Obviously, no government can wish away the fact that they didn't do anything, Sushil Pandit, to deliver justice. We all understand that. But when an elected chief minister should be putting his hand up and saying, yes, I apologize. This movie, right, wrong, does at least bring out the fact that there was a massacre. And I recognize in my advanced years, as a senior citizen, as a senior statesman, that injustice was done and I perhaps was a part of it. I submit myself. But even then, viewers, even then, you deny, you pass the buck. Now, what does that tell you? A, you may not have a conscience. B, you're so complicit that you fear the truth, that you need to bury it. Or, viewers, that you're so guilty that you don't want to be haunted by the hard fact. It can only be these three things. All of them are a damning indictment, quite frankly. Sanju Verma, yes, the truth is out once again. And once again, the question will be, what am I going to do about it? Am I banging my head against a central government that simply doesn't care? Or, I hope, Sanju Verma ji, as you have been a conduit in the past, you will point out how important this disclosure is and that remedial action must be taken. You have done this for the Sikh community. Prime Minister Modi began by setting up a commission. That cannot be an end in itself, as you know. Many Kashmiri Hindus are today looking at Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who began in 2013 by opening up, and to his credit, speaking about things that very few others even dared to talk about. Now we need closure, and we need to close the gap between expectation and deliverance of justice. Sanjuji.
Rahul, I want to say one thing. I have never minced my words. The fact of the matter is that your show is widely watched. And thank you for calling me a conduit. I personally believe, and even as the national spokesperson of BJP, I can assure you with a lot of responsibility, this is not engaging in rhetoric, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will certainly ensure that justice, which was denied to Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Hindus for 32 long years. Finally, I think the time for comeuppance, the time for redemption is here and now. And, for anybody who says, ki, ab tak kya hua? Because this is a natural corollary, this is a natural question that is asked when, the kind of exposures that have happened in the last couple of days with Times now leading at the forefront. So please also note, Rahul, that, this is the same Yasin who had actually filed a petition in the Jammu and Kashmir High Court when Farooq Abdullah was the Chief Minister that transfer all my cases where I have FIRs against me under TADA to Srinagar and let the cases not be heard in Jammu. So be it Farooq Abdullah, be it the central government, then they all nodded their head. If the Modi government has done one very brave thing, I think it is ensuring that not only Jamaat-e-Islami and the likes of JKLF are banned, but ensuring that karate are behind bars. And I will go as far as saying that for Bitta Karate and for Yasin Malik, there should be nothing less than capital punishment, because I don't think this is about retribution. And if people feel it is about retribution, so be it. I was on this debate last week also where Sushil Pandit was there, and he said the job of the government is not to build narratives, the job of the government is to act. I partially agree with him. I believe the job of the government is to encourage a transparent narrative and then ensure that based on the transparent narrative, action is taken. I simply want to say this. I think the start has to be made by first ensuring that there is a commission which acknowledges now officially that a genocide indeed took place on the 19th of January 1990, rather than saying that it was a self-imposed voluntary exodus by Kashmiri Pandits, which is what erstwhile Congress dispensers of National Conference have been trying to do by pulling a wool over everybody's eyes. Well, which I have to state, one thing which I have to state, and why I say that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will ensure justice is because, as you rightly said, even for the 1984 anti-Sikh riots, the first thing that Narendra Modi did in October 2014 was set up a SIT and ensure that Sajjan Kumar, and mind you, Sajjan Kumar has been a Congress veteran, ensure that he's behind bars. I just want to say one thing to the Abdullahs, though I think Sushil Pandit has laid down the fact, you put it brilliantly. As everybody now knows, the actual genocide did not take place January 9th. There was an entire build-up right from the Anantnag riots in 1986 to the CTO blast in 1988.
Sure.
So one very important thing which I want to mention, Rahul, which nobody is mentioning. Your channel today asked why was no action taken between 1990 and 2000 for 10 long years. Fine. 1990, VP Singh was the Prime Minister. For a short while after that, Chandrasekhar was the Prime Minister. I asked one question. From June 1991 to 1996, who was the Prime Minister? P.V. Narasimha Rao. After that, who was the H.D. Devegowda, supported by the Congress? After that, who was the Prime Minister? I.K. Gujral, supported by the Congress. So for the Congress and for the National Conference to simply nitpick and say VP Singh should be held responsible because he was supported
Rahul,
by Vajpayee, but we will forget about Narasimha Rao. We will forget about Narasimha Rao. We will forget about A.C. Devegowda. We will forget about I.K. Gujral.
Okay,
all supported
see,
by the Congress. I think that is a lot of hogwash.
if you want your answer, I've also answered that question. I also answered that question. The P.V. Narasimha Rao government, Mr. Pandit, in fact, denied.
Shameful.
That there was a pogrom, and who did they deny it to? The NHRC, viewers. Even that Times Now is exposed. You see, I'll tell you, viewers, Times Now commits to India. It commits to Indians first. And I'm shocked today, viewers, that Lutyens channels, Snap Brigade, this ecosystem of channels, are obsessing about a war, about lives, not Indian lives, of a war that is going on in Europe. The real war is here. The war for justice. Wake up. And I can tell you, viewers, had this happened in Gujarat, those same channels would have followed each story Times Now, would have broken. Their priorities, viewers, completely mixed up. At a time when a genocide is being buried in your own country. I want to ask all these Lutyens channels, what's the compulsion? What's the pressure? Was it because you all invited Yassin Malik and Gilani onto your channels and gave them platforms? Because you broke bread with separatists? Is that the reason? I don't know. What's your compulsion? Iskaran Bhandari, what do you think is their compulsion? Why do we have such a resounding, reverberating silence? Tell me. What's the problem here? The politicians don't want to accept. The media has gone into denial. Why?
Rahul, we have had some of your colleagues, not Times Now, but I mean your media colleagues saying 200 mare, 300 mare, so how is it genocide? So we have had those unfortunate utterances on national televisions that 300, 400, 500 is not genocide. That is why I started the debate by saying calling it genocide is very important, and that's why I wrote to the government 2 years ago, which they sent it to the law ministry later on from the home ministry. Unless you call it genocide, you will not be able to open so many old cases. The rules of evidence will be different because some of the evidence after 30 years would be lost. So we need to identify what it was, not a massacre, not a killing, but a genocide, and then apply the law. There are numerous in international conventions, including that if you deny Nazi genocide, that's a crime in itself.
Crime in
and
itself.
In India, we are on national television saying 200 mare, 500 mare, to kya hua? So we need to set the law and order, and then automatically we need to start the second, third process. But first call it a genocide, period.
You know, you have used this 400 mare ya 500 mare. So ye genocide kyun? Well, viewers, some people will say 680 have died in Ukraine. How is it a war? By that yardstick, these channels are chasing ghosts on the wrong continent. You see, that's the problem, viewers. There's something mighty wrong in the state of Denmark, to paraphrase Shakespeare. Something mighty wrong. And I want you to also focus on this next bit that I'm going to put out.
Rotten was the word.
Rotten. Something rotten in the state of Denmark. Thank you. Viewers, I'm going to now show you a sting that Times Now conducted. It's very important. Viewers, do you see the visuals on the extreme left of your screens? Look carefully, you will see the Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh of that time meeting Yassin Malik, the self-confessed butcher of Kashmiri Hindus and a former Pak-sponsored terrorist. He was the chief of the JKLF. Bitta Karate was part of the JKLF. Shabir Shah was part of the JKLF. They were all hunting Hindus, viewers, and bragging about it. They went on to TV stations and said, we killed, we murdered 30, 40, we don't even remember, we don't even know their names, we can't even tell you. Why we did it? Because we were so consumed by hate. Viewers, The picture is the most visible sign of the UPA's permissive attitude towards hardcore Islamist terrorists like Yasin Malik. Today, viewers, this picture is returned to haunt Kashmiri Hindu victims of the genocide in Kashmir. Yasin Malik and his aides, who were never brought to book, viewers, for their role in the anti-Hindu genocide despite being visibly guilty of the crime, are today using this photo op to protest their innocence. They are saying, we met a former prime minister. If we were guilty, would the prime minister have been meeting with us? We caught this on our own camera, viewers. This is the kind of alibi that the Congress party has handed the Maliks, the Karates by extension, and others. We stung Salim, Yasin Malik's closest aide. And he says, how are we guilty? These cases are fabricated. They are on TV, viewers, some of these chaps, confessing to their crimes. And today they say, the Prime Minister wouldn't have met us. And it's a fact. Background checks are done. You just can't walk up to a Prime Minister, meet him in his home, have coffee with him, get photographed, put your arm around him. Can't happen. Background checks are done. So either the background was simply covered up, or ignored, or viewers, there was some deal. I don't know.
Rahul, I need 1 minute.
No, 1 second. I want to first play out, sir, the sting. I'll come back right to you after the sting. You listen to the sting. You will also be educated and shocked. Your jaw will drop to the floor. I'll come straight to you.
Leaders have met Atal Bihari Vajpayee also.
That's fine.
And Atal Bihari Vajpayee
That's fine.
was a leader who led.
That's fine. I'm not justifying that.
From Delhi to Amritsar.
I'm not justifying that, sir. I'm not justifying that.
Bihar Vajpayee was the leader.
I am not justifying that.
And said, मैं पाकिस्तान के साथ दोस्ती
Sir,
कराता हूं.
two wrongs don't make a right, or do they make a right? Two wrongs make a right, or they don't make a right. Vajpayee came before Manmohan Singh. You didn't have to repeat. No. You didn't have to repeat the folly of Mr. Vajpayee.
No, I'm not going to take it.
No, you must. You must.
I'm not going to take
So
it.
you're saying, so 1 minute, Sajjad Tariq Bhai, your logic is very simple.
The photographs of Mr.
1 second, Sajjad Tariq Bhai, listen, 1 minute. Sajjad Tariq Bhai, your...
conducted a mass rally in which 1 lakh Kashmiris participated in Kashmir.
That's
and
fine.
he said कि मैं पाकिस्तान के साथ दोस्ती का हाथ बढ़ाता हूं क्योंकि पड़ोसी को तब्दील नहीं किया जा सकता.
Absolutely.
Was he not aware that 65 there?
You're absolutely right.
71 there was.
You're absolutely right. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it.
That doesn't suit.
But Sajjad Tariq, does that absolve Dr. Manmohan Singh? Does that absolve PV Narasimha Rao? Does that absolve Manmohan Singh? Does it absolve PV Narasimha Rao? It doesn't. Why did you get into the same trench? You could have avoided that. You could have called it out. But आपको भी वो करना था. आपको कौन सा competition जीतना था, sir? Anyhow, watch this, viewers. Just watch this sting. Two wrongs don't make a right. As I said, lots of prime ministers have come and gone over 32 years. None of them have even looked the way of the Kashmiri Hindu, let me tell you. Hopefully that will change. I want you to listen.
देखिए पॉलिटिकल पैट्रोनेज मनमोहन सिंह मिलता है लिखना कुछ होता है वो तो पॉलिटिकल लीडर है तो उनसे लेकिन उसके बाद ऑल ऑफ द सडन ये पॉलिटिकल लीडर है. अगर ऐसा होता ना इसको पता होता कि हमारे खिलाफ केस है पहले वो उनसे जब मनमोहन सिंह जी से मिलते ये बातचीत कब हुई लेकिन चार्ज फिल्म को आज चार्ज फिल्म से क्या चालान हो गया क्या हुआ चालान आपके खिलाफ चालान पेश हुआ है. मैंने एक चीज बताओ मुझे वो परसों नहीं कर सकते थे उनको कहे कि ये अगर मोहम्मद यासीन मलिक कातिल था हिंदुस्तान का प्राइम मिनिस्टर उनसे क्यों मिल रहा है मुझे बताइए. कातिल से क्यों मिल रहे हैं? अगर इसने उनके एयरफोर्स के आदमी को मारा है तो वो भी कह रही है हमारा आर्गुमेंट 30 साल जब 30 साल आप 30 साल मत छोड़े आपको क्या लगता है 30 साल इन्वेस्टिगेशन करते रहे आपका मतलब यही 30 साल बीच में छोड़ ही दिया था उन्होंने सारा मसला क्यों छोड़ा बिल्कुल इस टाइम पॉलिटिकल डायलॉग पैट्रोनेज रहेगी वो तो आज भी चल रहे थे वो तो 20 साल पहले 2000 के बाद हुई ना स्टार्ट 2000 तक क्या कर रहे थे 1990 से 2000 तक तो एक बड़ा अरसा है ना 10 साल का अरसा है 10 साल में क्या कर रहे हैं आप कहेंगे आपके चौसठ सरकार सॉफ्ट थी, वो अपन दोनों को किसने फांसी पे चढ़ाया? मकबूल को किसने फांसी पे चढ़ाया? बीजेपी ने चढ़ाया, कांग्रेस ने चढ़ाया, उसको भी कांग्रेस ने चढ़ाया फांसी पे।
Now, viewers, Yasin Malik was accused amongst many crimes. There are a whole list of them. We showed them to you 2 days back. None of those cases, charge sheets were filed, viewers. Amongst his victims were 4 IAF, Indian Air Force personnel. One of them, squadron leader Ravi Khanna. His wife, Nirmal Khanna, spoke to Times Now. And she was shocked, viewers, as to how people like Yasin Malik were legitimized. Listen to this.
यासिन मलिक को गांधीयन कहा जाता था, तो तब भी मैंने बताया था कि गांधीयन कैसे, कि जिसने गन उठा ली वो गांधीयन कैसे है। कहने से पहले थोड़ा शर्म आनी चाहिए हमको। और स्क्वाड्रन लीडर खन्ना जो निहत्था था, वो उसके सीने में आर पार गोली कर सकता था। एक गोली लगने के बावजूद वो उसके साथ स्कफल किया है, गन में उसने एयर में खाली की है, एक साथी की जान बचाई है। पीछे से उन्होंने आके दूसरे साथी ने उसके 27 गोलियों का पूरा मैगजीन खाली किया है, तो उसकी बात को उजागर नहीं कर सके ये। लेकिन यासीन मलिक के साथ पता नहीं इनका ऐसा क्या था, हुकूमतों का ऐसी कौन सी चीज़ थी कि जो ये उसको तो हीरो बना के, लीडर बना के बिठा रखा था।
Mr. Pandit, what do you make of this?
Rahul, this is shocking. An Indian Air Force officer and his widow is not being given justice for more than 30 years. Squadron leader Ravi Khanna deserved better. And the killers, in fact, there is an interview of Yasin Malik with Tim Sebastian in a program that BBC used to have those days called Hard Talk. I think that it's still on air. Stephen Sucker probably, yes, he interviews now. In that program, Tim Sebastian made him confess. He repeatedly asked him the question, and finally he threw up saying, yes, we killed them because they were agents of our enemy India. That's what Yasin Malik said in that program. It's still on YouTube. He is a self-confessed murderer. He is supposed to have abducted even Rubia Saeed. He is part in killing of Lassa Kaul, who was director Doordarshan Kendra Srinagar. He is the one who participated in the murder of Justice Neelkant Ganju. He is the one who raped Sarla Bhatt. This man from top to bottom is soaked in our blood. Can you give him clemency? Can you simply, forgive all his brutalities? Forget them? And not just this, I'm saying, Rahul, if you were to apply for a passport,
yes,
Government of India would ask for your criminal record if there is any.
Absolutely.
This man is a crime, walking, talking, living crime. Crime of genocide. How did he land up with a passport? How did he roam around the world? How was he allowed to go to Pakistan and get married there?
Shocking. Shocking, shocking.
He was treated like a son-in-law by successive governments, successive prime ministers, successive administrators. Our spy masters used to handle him with kid gloves. He was turned into some kind of a revolutionary.
Yes.
And this word Gandhian was actually Gandhian with guns. You don't miss the irony in this phrase. They were described as Gandhian with guns by none other than someone called Arundhati Roy.
Absolutely. Now look, I want to also bring in Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, we're mixing up the brief a little bit. We have the privilege of having you, and you have understood the Pakistan-Kashmir tangle and studied it and written about it obsessively. And I just want to ask you, there is one question that I can't come to terms with. How is it that the killers of so many innocents were legitimized? What happened here?
Rahul, this is one of the great mysteries of how the Indian state operates. And I think it is one of the travesties of the Indian state that anybody who picks up a weapon, anybody who's a traitor to the Indian state, anybody who commits treachery against the Indian state, anybody who's a terrorist is fated, he's enriched. And in Kashmir, actually the terrorists were actually enriched by the government of India, successive government, intelligence agencies. And these guys used to be on the take from all sides. Their work used to be, Rahul, we've spoken on your programs and subsequent programs on times now of the ecosystem which had been created in Kashmir over the last 30 years. All of these guys profited. So that was one problem with the Indian state. The second is that there is this concept in the Indian state that, why don't you buy these people out so that you mainstream them? And there has, and this is not just limited to Kashmir. You've done it in the Northeast. Including people like Lal Dinga and others who were, you struck agreements with them, brought them in. Some of them became chief ministers. You've done it in a number of other troubled places. So in many of these places, the same, a template has been followed. What they never understood was that in Kashmir, that these fellows who were the terrorists, they were not normal political activists who were taken to weapons. Right? These guys were out and out jihadists. Where these guys were coming from was from a mindset which was religiously driven. These guys were, they were indoctrinated and they had this veneer of secularism. JKLF, for example, and I can tell you, in the 90s, senior editors in the government, in the Indian media used to say that, listen, JKLF is a terrorist organization, but look, they are nice guys because they are secular. Can you imagine the people who had carried out the worst kinds of crimes against a minority community, that is the Hindus or the Kashmiri Pandits, were called secular? This was the bastardization of the concept of secularism in this country. Pardon my language, but there is no other word which explains this. And this is what has gone wrong as far as Kashmir is concerned. Because otherwise, I can understand that you reach out to people, you reconcile, you bring them into the mainstream and things move on. But in Kashmir, the people with whom you were trying this were never going to fall for this mainstreaming business. And I think that is where we lost the plot.
Rahul, if you mainstream jihad, you will mainstream genocide.
Well, let me tell you, viewers, that's why I was asking questions of this ecosystem, this Lutyens ecosystem, viewers, including the media, and their continued silence over what now appears to be a movement for justice. They're more bothered about some war that is going on that may or may not have huge, devastating implications for us. But they're not going to address a story that is actually having a devastating impact on us. I don't know why. And maybe it's because Sushant Sareen himself says that a large number of them got sucked in or were perhaps co-opted to believe that these people were Gandhians with guns. Viewers, I leave it at that tonight. We're going to be back tomorrow with more exposés. We are going to go right down, viewers, to the last conspiracy in this long chain link of conspiracies. We will prize each of these links open to expose the truth. We're not giving up. We're not giving up. At the end of the line is justice. I leave it at that. The news hour continues, viewers. Watch it. More exposés.
More power.